Thank you so much for the awesome MC. Super excited about this really wonderful panel of diverse founders here on our stage today. I'll open up with a quick introduction of myself. I'm Kylan Kester. I'm the program coordinator for Google for Startups Black and Latino Founders Funds. I'm also the founding director of the Launchpad at Morehouse, our first dedicated program for student entrepreneurs at Morehouse College. We also have a wonderful all-star group of panelists here as well. I'd love to open it up to you all next to do quick introductions of yourself. The format that I'd love to do is just your name, the company you're working on, and a brief description of it. And I'd love a quick icebreaker. Can you just talk about a little bit about what you would be doing if you weren't working in tech? Helena, I would love to open it up with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Helena. I'm the CEO and co-founder of PamPam. I'm a Latina founder. I'm also formerly a designer. PamPam is a way to make and share maps. You can share events, people, places on a map to share what's important in your community. And if I weren't in tech, I think I would be working with artisans and helping them sell crafts and design stuff.
Love it. Creative bone.
I might be right there next to you. I'm Steve Jones. I'm CEO and founder of a company called pocstock, P-O-C stock. We specialize in diversity-focused images of people of color, so people can use it for your marketing, advertising, and any of your collateral. You're building a website, you need good quality images. That's what we provide. If I wasn't doing this, I probably would be traveling the country helping startups not make the mistakes that I made early on, and helping them grow their businesses.
Giving back. I'd love to see it.
And I'm Keith Chaney. I'm co-founder and CEO of the software platform Peadbo. Peadbo is a tool for users to build and manage their personal advisory board. So if you think Google has a board to help them succeed, with our platform, you can build your own board as well as a newsletter to stay top of mind with your supporters. If I wasn't doing this, funny quick story, when I was a kid, I used to want to be an actor, and I would audition for all these parts. And one of the parts that I didn't get was actually given to a guy named Michael B. Jordan. And so in a different world, I'd be like in Creed and all the cool movies. I'd be Killmonger, all that stuff.
I can
That's
see it.
right. Awesome. Well, we love it. A bunch of creative minds, folks who want to give back. That's super inspiring to hear. Another really inspiring thing is the through line with all of your companies. You all have some very specific needs that you're addressing that basically tackle this issue of racial disparity as it pertains to technology. I'd love to kind of kick it back off and start with Steve, but just wanted to know, like, from your perspective, how is your technology solution currently addressing racial disparity?
So if you think about, and that's a great question, our entire company from top to bottom is built to solve racial challenges. And early on, what we discovered is that marketers, business owners, advertisers, they have a challenge in finding good quality images of people of color. Also, the advertising industry kind of set the tone for what we consider to be beautiful, who's valuable in society. So early on when we were building our tech, we wanted to make sure that we made it easy for people to find good quality images while also at the same time challenging those stereotypes of who's beautiful, who's not beautiful, setting the tone for finding the beauty in every racial group, every cultural group, making sure we spotlight from a tech standpoint all of those meta tags, all of the metadata that allows people to understand the difference between dreads or locks, braids, different sort of cultural attributes of different people from around the world. So we operate in 60 countries, and every geography, there's challenges in terms of identifying and finding value in every cultural group. So we make sure painstaking time is spent on curating content and putting it out there on our tech platform. And we're doing the same thing now that we've done in marketing and advertising in the AI space. So AI is a part of everyone's lives now. The data is flawed, it's incomplete. So we provide cultural and diversity data sets to AI companies so that they can show people like us in the right way. The AI can understand who we are, because if it starts to roll out into law enforcement, into the court systems, into education, into healthcare, we want to make sure they understand who we are and how best to treat us in certain ways, you know what I mean? So we're working on it from top to bottom.
I love it. Very impactful work, and super excited to see all of the really great progress you've made as well. Helena, I'd love to turn the same question over to you. I know we talked about some of the awesome customers that you're working with now. How is your solution addressing the racial disparities that we see in the community currently?
Sure, yeah. So PamPam's a tool used by a lot of community organizers, local businesses, people really out there in the community highlighting what's important to them in the real world. So for example, we worked with Diversitech to create a map of all the social events that are happening at the conference. We also have another customer who's using it to create a Haitian Heritage event calendar that is happening this month. It's Haitian Heritage Month. Yeah, and so it's really important for us to just give the tool to the people who are out there doing the work in the community and making sure they're able to highlight what's important to them, the things that wouldn't be highlighted otherwise in the mainstream, whether that's event, people, or businesses. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Keith, how about yourself? How do you see your solution addressing racial disparity, especially as it pertains to people building their own board of advisors, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, on a personal note, you know, when I graduated from college, and I'm sure several people will be able to relate to this, I was fortunate enough to have an amazing family. But no one in my family had worked for Google or McKinsey or any of the places I found myself in. So despite their best efforts, there were limits on how they could help me succeed in those spaces. And it's a much bigger problem than me. First-gen college grads are earning $36,000 less than those whose parents went to college, or their peers whose parents went to college. And when you consider the size of each class, you're talking $48 billion add to the wealth gap each year. And so what we're doing is closing that information gap to help close the wealth and opportunity gaps, and partnering with organizations like TextGiving, as well as universities to say, hey, the talent is here, but these people don't have some of the relationships to help them to succeed. And they're building dedicated boards, which in other communities might look like, oh, I have an uncle there, or I caddied for so-and-so, and he helped me bypass the interview process, so that we can kind of unlock some of that side door access to opportunities.
That's super impactful, and hopefully that helps folks in the audience also consider what their personal board of advisors might look like. So it sounds like you've all been able to kind of address different solutions and create different ways for you all to make an impact in the community. I'm curious to know, as you were building your products, you know, for the founders in the room, what were some of the things that you included as, you know, principles as you're designing a product that was addressing diversity and racial disparities and that issues?
For us, you know, we were customer focused from day one. We had about a year of non-technical pilot, which meant me and my co-founders would get on a Zoom with anybody who would join us, and we would coach people through what a personal advisory board is, how to think about who might be a good fit, and then helping them to kind of manage that board and create that newsletter update. And what we saw was people started to get promotions and new jobs, and really proving the concept worked, but also making sure we got feedback to understand that before we start to code, what do we want to make sure that we're including in this? And so if anybody here does have, you know, entrepreneurial aspirations, you don't necessarily have to quit your job and jump out, but you can start as early as possible just to do interviews and learn from the customer what they need.
Steve?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for us, we baked DE&I into our entire company from day one. One of the things, and it kind of answers the first question a little bit, creators of color are usually not included in a lot of, you know, of the wealth that's generated from content. My industry is a $4 billion a year industry. Mostly creators of color are not the first people that get called for opportunities. When you look at a lot of the large stock platforms, creators of color are not necessarily highly compensated, so they're not incentivized to participate in the process. So what we've done is we leveled the playing field for people of color who are creators, whether they are photographers, videographers. We pay them fairly, we pay them on time. We make sure, which is an equitable way to work. We make sure we include them on high-profile projects. We build inclusive teams. And now with AI, a lot of people are looking at AI as a thing that's going to take creators' jobs. But when we're supplying this data, we're compensating the creators. So AI is projected to generate $7 trillion in GDP over the next 7 years. Right? So who's going to benefit from that? Right? People of color who are going to be greatly impacted should also benefit from this next tech boom. So we baked it into our process so creators of color are not excluded from the revenue generating opportunities that AI presents. So photographers, videographers, connect with us. We're creating wealth building opportunities for you. Just connect with us.
Helena, did you have anything to add on that point, or would you like to jump into the next one?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, just echoing some of what was said in terms of like when we're out talking to customers, making sure we are talking to, Black and brown people, Asian people, like just going out there and talking to as many people as we can across diverse backgrounds and making sure that their needs are being met. And I think for anybody who's building software or a product or a company, that's really like baseline. But even then, like you will often not see that happening. So yeah, just wanted to echo that.
Well, thank you so much. And I love that you all kind of spoke to the customer obsession, being really focused in on folks that look like yourselves and also the audiences that you're looking to build these products for, which I think is incredibly important. Kind of taking a step back, because Steve, you also brought up a really great point of the impact that this will have on the economy. One of the other things that we're seeing at the kind of greater economic level right now is kind of a bit of an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. From the founder perspective, I'm curious to know what role do you all say that you would have in just defending a lot of the work that's going into making sure that founders like yourselves get resources, or that programs that are led by the governments or education institutions are staying up and running so that the next generation can benefit from them.
Yeah, I think if any of us benefits from DE&I effort, so if you're someone who has traditionally been excluded from opportunities, whether it's if you're a startup founder and you're looking for opportunities for funding, whether you're a supplier to a corporation and you need opportunities to supply your products and services to them and you feel like you're on the margins, the attacks on DE&I are going to eliminate those opportunities systematically. And it's incumbent upon every founder of color, every ally, to stand up and say, if you're in favor of it, stand up and say this is necessary. Why? Because we under-index in every category of wealth generation, right? So any opportunity to generate wealth, we are traditionally excluded from it. Whether it's funding, we get less than 1% of VC funding. Whether it's housing opportunities, whether it's education, we're traditionally not getting the lion's share of those opportunities. So everyone who has a voice, it's incumbent upon us to use that voice to say, this is not fair, this is not right, this is not a way to grow. There's a fallacy that if more people sit at the table, there's less for each person to eat. But it's the opposite. The more people at the table of opportunity actually expands to include more people, right? So we have to continuously deliver that message. We work with a lot of major corporations who cannot necessarily be mandated not to focus on DE&I, but they're fearing what they're seeing in the news. They don't want to be sued. They don't want to be called out for focusing on DE&I efforts. But fortunately, we have a lot of good partners like Google and others who really stand behind their DE&I efforts, their supply diversity efforts. So we need to champion those folks. If we find good companies who are doing the right things, spotlight them, right? And just really keep hammering that away. I can't say that strong enough. We have to keep using our voice to speak out against what's going on. Because the people who are trying to stop DEI, they're loud, they're organized, and they're systemic, right? They're working together. So we have to do the same if we feel DEI is in our best interest. So, that's really what we're doing at pocstock as well.
Very well said.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, some of the recent attacks and some of the things that are happening in this space have caused us to do what we've always had to do, right? And that's be creative. And so for us, our biggest customer set is universities. So literally people that we would have talked to last year, their jobs don't exist. And some of our pitch is now illegal. And so what that has caused us to do is go back to the drawing board and say, okay, how can we still accomplish this mission, closing the wealth and opportunity gaps, even though we're all first-gen founders of color, but doing it in a way that may be received a bit better. And so if you heard my pitch earlier, I was intentional about saying not black and brown, but saying, okay, we're going to focus on first-gen college graduates, or we're going to focus on, other areas where the medicine is still in there. We just may not use the language DEI because, unfortunately, it'll instantly cut off some of our potential business. But we know if we can convince a company to purchase our platform and provide it to first-gen college graduates or to their ERGs, all of them, then that includes the ERG for black people. That includes the ERG for for Latinx people. And so we're having to be creative, but also understanding that our mission is still going to be our mission regardless of what laws change.
Absolutely.
Helena, did you have any things to kind of speak on in the anti-DEI laws and kind of some of the things that you feel as a founder is your impact?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I can add, on a personal note, because I'm a very new founder, I've been in tech for over 10 years, as a product designer at Google, Khan Academy, Figma, Facebook, all sorts of places. And I think relating to what you said about, trying to get creative, I really feel like as a Latina in tech, I've seen all sorts of things, and now starting PamPam on my own is about doing things on my own terms with the values that I have in mind, which is very different than when you're working at a big company. But I have had to be creative about it. I started working on PamPam a year and a half ago, just on nights and weekends. I am bootstrapping it right now, and a lot of it is to stay in line with some of the values that I have. And so, yeah, it's it's tough out there for sure, but I think there are lots of interesting ways that, you can go about it.
Well, that's awesome, and it's a wonderful segue into kind of the next question I have for you all, and just in terms of this current ecosystem around fundraising and navigating that process. It sounds like bootstrapping is something that's been working for you and keeping the integrity of what you're building in your business. I'm curious to know, how are some other ways that you all are navigating the fundraising environment as it currently stands?
Sure, I can speak a little bit more on bootstrapping. So yeah, me and my co-founder decided to bootstrap for the time being. We're both technical co-founders, and so we are able to design and develop it ourselves. I do feel like we're at a point now where you can build a lot yourself if you have that know-how, and so I'm super excited to see more founders leveraging that and even being able to do something on the side as a way to get started. But it definitely comes with a lot of privilege. We are using our personal savings in order to do that. So it has taken a long time to even get to this point in order to be able to do that. But yeah, there's all sorts of different paths. So that's the path that I'm taking right now.
Nice. And Keith or Stephen, have you taken any alternative routes?
First, I'll just say it's been hard. This market is not the market of 2 or 3 years ago. I've had a few people just flat out tell me that the George Floyd effect is over. And so where there were a lot of companies kind of putting their money toward backing black and brown founders, that's dried up a lot. And so for us, one, we started building while we were all still working full time. I was at Google while going through Techstars to get some seed funding, which I don't recommend, working at Google and going through Techstars at the same time. It's not sustainable for your mental health. But that helped us to, build our MVP. We've also been hustling in these pitch competition streets. We've been able to bring in at least, I think, $85K just from pitch competitions. We've been able to leverage equity. A lot of software developers are really good at their job, but they're not being challenged. And so they have some bandwidth to where you could say, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you, but we can do 2% over 4 years. You could be lead software developer, and then when it's up, you have a piece of this. And so you have to leverage everything at your disposal if you're not able to pay people. And so back to that creativity, right? If the resources aren't plentiful, you got to figure out a way.
Love it. If we can't do nothing else, we can be creative. Steve, did you have anything else to add there?
Sure. We started off self-funded as well through our pre-seed round. So we funded our MVP. We funded for the first year and a half on our own. And then we went into a seed round. And
what year was this, by the way?
So pocstock was founded November 2019. In 2021, we did our first seed round. We raised $745,000. Then we realized that we had a minimum of 10K, so we did a crowdfunding round because we wanted to be more inclusive of people of color, everyday people who could not afford $10,000 in investment, but wanted to support us. So we did a crowdfunding round. So that's a whole nother vehicle. And now we're in a new phase where we're still in the seed phase, but we have a VC, Silicon Valley VC, that invested $500,000 in us last year, and we're raising another $500,000 this year. Well, currently before the end of June, so we're halfway there. So there's different vehicles that we've used, and depending on how much you want to raise in your community, crowdfunding is something I recommend as well because it allows you to democratize fundraising. You're not beholden to a VC. You don't always have to give up equity. You can do we did a price round because we have a valuation and share price, but you don't always have to go that way. There's so many different ways to do fundraising. There's community organizations CDFIs that have programs. So in Jersey, for our $500,000 that we're raising right now, we have a program that's going to match that $500,000 that we raised, and total $1 million in funds raised, and it's non-dilutive capital, meaning they don't take equity, right? So there's
Hope y'all taking notes.
Yeah, there's programs where you are to advance small businesses, and especially founders of color, especially women of color. There's so much money available, and you just have to do the research and go out and find it. But yeah, we've tried out so many different ways of raising funds to make sure that we have people of color, not just in the images, but also on the cap table. One day, pocstock is going to be valued at $100 million, whatever, and we want people of color, when we do whatever we do next with the company, to benefit from it. So that's why we were, important and intentional about getting that crowdfunding round to get more. We have 200 plus investors as a result. So, yeah.
This is really impressive. I love the diversity of the panel that we have here of different funding resources, from bootstrapping to dilutive and non-dilutive fundraising to even accelerators and programs that have funding. It's kind of interesting too, because going through this process, you face a lot of no's, you set a lot of goals that you might not make. I'm curious to know from all of you, like in this process, how do you kind of manage your own mental health and well-being? And especially for those who are navigating both having a life, a family, the other things as well. I would love to, just kind of hear from you all. What are some ways that you're managing that? And Helena, I'd love to kick it off with you.
Sure, yeah. I'm a mom. My co-founder is my husband. So it's really like all in the family. I really do think about it like a family business in some ways, but it definitely takes a toll. We work days, we work nights, because my co-founder still has his daytime job. So it's definitely intense. I'm still figuring it out, is the truth. But the other one is just like having, would love to hear, more about kind of like setting up that board and that sort of thing, because I really feel it now where I'm like, who are my go-to people that I can turn to? And some of it, is my family, like my sister. I'm calling her, this great thing happened, this bad thing happened, and just having people who you can turn to. I feel it more now, more than ever, and the people who are showing up, it's been really, really awesome to see, and it's like, it makes a world of difference.
Love it. Got a shout out over here already with the leadership board there.
Burnout is real, and depending on the stage you are at your business, it's like I treat a business like if it's a baby. Like at certain stages, you can't leave your baby alone. You feel guilty if you're away from it. But at some point, that baby starts to toddle, then it starts to walk, then it starts to run on its own. You want to get to that point as soon as possible, because that first 6 months to 2 years is where most businesses live, or unfortunately some go out of business. But mental health wise, unplugging from social media is important. Turning off notifications is important. Don't stay plugged into the business, because when you're in the business, you're not working on the business, right? So you have to balance out the time you're spending in those early stages working in the business, so you can get to a point where it's running on its own with minimal input from you, and then you're working on the business in terms of the growth and scale of that business. So if you don't have the right work-life balance, it's very difficult to get from working in the business to working on the business, and eventually you get burnout. So.
Echoing everything you guys said, and especially having my personal advisory board. I take my own medicine, so I have a group that I meet with every quarter. They kind of kick my ass and tell me where I should be focused and where some of my ideas may need some pressure testing, which helps me to kind of have more confidence in our strategy. But beyond that, just knowing what my non-negotiables are. I block Mondays off. I don't do meetings because I want to focus on like, all right, what's the strategy this week? I also block off time for workouts. If I'm in DC, I'm gonna pick my daughters up from school. Those are non-negotiables. But I might work late because of that. And so just knowing that I have these kind of safeguards up around the things that matter most, so that when I'm in work mode, I don't feel like I'm neglecting the things that matter most. And then another thing is you have to separate your identity from your company, which is, I say this, but I struggle with it every day, right? Because after a while, you become Keith from Peadbo. But there are so many factors, macroeconomic factors, so many factors beyond my control, beyond how smart I am, that would determine whether or not this company succeeds or fails. And I can't allow that to be me. Oh, Peadbo didn't do this, so I failed, or I didn't get the grant, I didn't get this. It's a me thing, whereas it's actually the company. And so just having that understanding that just because something happens to your company doesn't mean it's a reflection of who you are, how valuable you are, how talented you are, is something that I have to constantly remind myself of.
Never ends. Did you have something else to add?
No, I love that because I was there as well. And just one small statement is, remember, you are not your company. You're a curator, a caretaker, you're responsible for it, but you're not your company. So if your company performs well, your company performed well. It's not necessarily all that pressure of saying, I am my company. No, that if you fall into that trap, you'll never have any mental peace. A company is an entity that you're curating to a certain level, getting to a certain level, but you are not the company.
I love it. I love it. And in the spirit of creativity, I'd love to do a quick exercise and just, for a moment here as all panelists, just imagine yourself as a founder, first year. For the folks in this room that might be in that very spot right now, what is one resource or piece of advice that you've gotten up to this point in your career that you think someone like yourself at that first year would benefit from?
Chat GPT. No, and
the AI,
in
the
all
LLM.
honesty, man, like these tools are amazing, especially once you learn how to use them. You train them to kind of understand your brand, voice, and messaging. And no offense to my co-founders, but I joke, Chat GPT is my favorite employee because I've saved hours, that I would have spent trying to figure out the words and they've given me like 80% of what I needed, and I can tweak it to make sure it's aligned with who we are in our voice. And so that, if I was trying to do all this stuff 2 years ago, I know I would have spent way more hours than I do now. And so just leveraging technology. I was joking earlier, Canva is probably the best $15 we spend every month. So like there are tools that are built to help you scale operations of your business. And so just leverage them, like spend the money because it's going to cost you on the back end the time, and that's the most valuable resource you got.
I feel like we had some Chat GPT and Canva workshops earlier on the Diversitech too, so I'm sure we've gotten some really great resources on that front. Steve or Helena?
Yeah, I'll save the best for last. I'll just say this. One thing that I live by is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I baked that in early. So co-founders were brought on from day one. We have 1,000 customers right now. We have 200 investors. We have 30 people around the world. We have 800 contributors. Pocstock is an ecosystem. So we built something that does not center on any one person as early as possible, because that's the only way you're going to grow and scale a business, is you have to make it a community, make it centered around as many people, get as many people invested in your dream and your idea. They'll be the ones that test it early on and tell you whether it's good. They'll keep you on the right track when you're veering off because you have this big, bright idea that you want to experiment with, like Zuckerberg in the metaverse. And you want people who can help keep you on track at all stages of growth of your business. So having as many people around you who can provide you with honest feedback will save you so much trouble.
Board of Advisors.
The board of advisors.
Build your board, man, and your newsletter. Like I think because that's a secondary feature, it often gets overlooked. But one of the first things I learned as a founder is, startups do this thing. They send out investor updates. It's a really quick way to stay top of mind with potential customers. And immediately it clicked for me, like, why don't people do this? Like everybody here has at least 50 people who want to see them win, even if you don't think they have the resources or the connections to help you. I tell people during our workshop, people say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I say that's not it. It's who knows what you need. And so if you have someone in your network who could make an amazing connection, but you never make them aware that you have this business idea, it's not going to happen. And so something as small as just a quarterly, hey, quick update on my life, maybe add some family stuff. You'll be surprised who responds with it. Actually, I know somebody at that company. Let me make an intro. And so there's a mindset that like, don't talk about your dreams. Dreams killers. Look, tell as many people as you can what you're trying to do. Maybe, don't give them all the sauce, but give them that opportunity to say, I can actually probably help you with this, or I can connect you with someone who can.
I love that. Give people the opportunity to show up for you. That's so important. I have time, looks like, for one more question, and so I think this should be a hard-hitting question, huh? So I guess the question will be Drake versus Kendrick. Who do you think? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I can talk about that all day.
No, I'll say, I'd love to kind of find ways to support you all. What's one way that the folks here in the room can show up for you or your business? Just kind of wrapping up, I would love to go down the entire line here.
I got two ways. First thing you could do is sign up for Peadbo right now for free. You can start to build your board. You can actually send out your first newsletter. So it's not something we put behind the paywall because we don't want money to be something that stops you from getting started. And then second, if you could just talk about it, right? Tell people that there's this platform and, maybe share it on your socials so that we can continue to generate some buzz.
Love it.
Oh, the same. Just go to pocstock.com, sign up as a customer, or we have a free tier, as well as if you're a photographer or videographer, we're looking for creators of color. We want to make sure this next wave of revenue comes through Pocstock and flows right to you. So if you know any photographers, send them our way. You don't have to be a professional. You just have to have a dope perspective on life. So definitely go to pocstock.com and sign up. And follow us on social media as well would be great. We're heavy on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for us, please follow us on our social media. We're trying to grow. We're at PamPam_city on Instagram, TikTok, all of it. And I'm also over there. So if you want to come meet with me, talk about maps, communities, events, design. I'm from Ecuador. I went to community college. Happy to talk about, however I can help.
I love it. Well, can we get a round of applause for this wonderful group here? Thank you all so much for taking this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.